Good morning, everyone. My team, formed by Christopher Garcia, Leonardo Trujillo, Alonso Valverde, Luis Flores, and myself, Paulo Mendoza, we're gonna start the company narrative presentation about MasterCard. During this presentation, we will be covering five key aspects: the story, the challenges that have our company, the key issue, the key stakeholders, and the communication objective. Well, starting with the story of MasterCard, MasterCard narrative is one of transformation, inclusion, and innovation. The company is telling a story of a world moving beyond traditional cash, uh, traditional cash transactions to embrace digital payments that are fast, secure, and inclusive. This story unfolds throughout several key themes. A world beyond cash. At the heart of MasterCard's story, it is mission to create a world beyond cash. This vision speaks to the company commitment by reducing the reliance on physical currency, which can be inefficient, insecure, and exclusive. The innovation and technology, MasterCard's story is also about being the forefront of technological innovation in the payment industry. The company positions aim to create innovation technology to provide novelties to our clients. The financial inclusion, well, a significant part of Mastercard's narrative focus on financial inclusion. The company strives to bridge the gap between the unbanked and the formal financial system by collaborating with various stakeholders, including governments, nonprofit, and fintech companies. The company strives to bridge the gap between the unbanked and the formal financial system. And last but not least, security and trust. In an era where digital transactions are vulnerable to cyber threats, Mastercard tells a story about the robust security and trust. The company emphasized its investment in advanced security measures, such as artificial intelligence and biometrics, to protect consumers and business from fraud. Well, next, my teammate Leonardo.
Thank you, Paulo. Today we are talking about the challenge of that story. I had like to discuss the challenge faced by MasterCard, one of the world's leading payment and processing companies in recent years. MasterCard has encountered numerous obstacles that have tested in the resilience and ability to adapt the in every changing asset. So we have three challenges to the story: the relation challenge, the missions and concerns, and finally the litigation and enforcements. In summary, the MasterCard and Visa face antitrust concerns about market dominance and also the proposing regularity oversight. Fintech and the cryptocurrency present new competition requiring adaptation to involving these regulations. And a summary of the mission and concerns is that MasterCard navigates involving regulations and cybersecurity. The company supports small businesses with open banking. And finally, the summary of the litigation enforcement is MasterCard faces a DOJ investigation into its debit card practices and merchant lawsuits over fees and functional limits. Now I will explain very descriptive that firstly, MasterCard dominant position in the payment process industry alongside its main competitor. Visa has drawn significant attention from regulators and merchants. And the trust concerns have led allegations of abusive practice and unfair fees. Moreover, merchants and retail groups have been at the forefront of the push of reforms, citing the highway swipe fees charged MasterCard and Visa as significant cost that ultimately affects customer. In addition to the external pressures, MasterCard must also contend with the rise of new technologies and competitors. The emergence of fintech cryptocurrency has introduced alternative methods of conducting transactions. Regulatory compliance is another significant challenge for MasterCard. The company must navigate a complex web of regulations and requirements, particularly in areas such as data and security. Failure to comply with this regulation can result costly penalty and reputational damage. Despite this challenge, MasterCard has not lost sight of the importance of supporting small and mid-sized business, recognizing as the challenge this business face, such as limited access to capital and technology resources. I will pass with my friend Christopher.
Um, Hi. So then, um, first, a challenge that could arise from the disconnect between the research narrative and the real issues and challenge faced by Mastercard is the risk of the impact on consumer perception and brand loyalty. For example, first, regulatory compliance narrative. Whether Mastercard has emphasized its commitment to regulatory compliance and data protection in this public narrative, but at the same time is under investigation by the USA Department of Justice for alleged unethical business practice related to the card's debit could generate confusion, confusion and mistrust among consumers. Then, the lack of consistency between the regulatory compliance narrative and the actual actions faced by Mastercard um, in the investigation could consumers trust in the company and affect their brand loyalty. So then, finally, it is there before crucial for Mastercard to address any disconnect between this public narrative and the real challenge facing the company to maintain consumers' trust and protect its market position. This may involve great transparency, open communication about the challenge the company faces, and concrete actions to address any discrepancy between words actions. Now my classmates Luis will explain the next point.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher. Today, I will talk about key stakeholders. Mastercard faces challenges in this payment, leadership due antitrust concerns, fees, and competition from fintech. It needs to improve relations with merchants and address regulatory and security issues to maintain its position and reputation. We identified three key stakeholders. Uh, for example, merchants and retailers. They have a significant power or an influence over Mastercard due to their direct business relationships and concerns about transactions, fees, and business practice. Government and regulators. They possess regulatory power and legal authority to oversee Mastercard's activity, making their consumers and antitrust practice and consumers' protections urgent. Consumers and end users, they have legitimacy as the recipients of Mastercard services and urgency regarding concerns about transaction security and data protections. My colleague will continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Luis. Then, so we have the fifth part that is articulate a communication objective. This is super important because the first step is to identify stakeholders. So what is this about? The first step is analyze, identify stakeholders. Why? Because we need to know them more. When you analyze them in a given situation, they are often many more individuals or groups of people who can be impact the situation that we originally have thought about. All these people are stakeholders. It's important to think all about them, both within and outside the company. How could impact and how they could change the decisions that are done. So external stakeholders are those individuals outside the organization who can impact or be impacted, as I was saying. How we could be positively impact the decision or situation. How it could be it will be negatively impacted. How has been involved in any similar situation before? Any common way to identify stakeholders and differentiate them between internal and external is by using a stakeholder wheel. What is this? It's a visual representation of internal and external stakeholders. So once we have identified all of our potential stakeholders, is the step to understand each one of them better, to know what they are in the company at the first place, what are they trying to tempt. Second step, understand stakeholders. Now that we have identified all the stakeholders, the second step is to understand them. In this step, our goal is to find out how as much as possible about each stakeholder group so it can be better understand them. We should ask ourselves questions like, what are the critical issues? What are the concerns of this stakeholder? What does this stakeholder group care about? And what does this stakeholder want? Finally, the answer to these questions above will help to understand which each stakeholder wants. This step was shorter, but now we will begin with step 3, prioritizing. Now we have identified each one of them. We have a better understanding of their critical issues. So the first step is to determine on key stakeholders and how we will communicate with them. We know that it's not the same one from another. One model for prioritizing them is a silence model developed by Mitchell, Egel, and Wood. By the silence model, stakeholders are prioritized based on power, legitimacy, and urgency, most of them. A stakeholder power is mostly determined by how much influence that person has to impact in the decision. Legitimacy is the extent of which a stakeholder has an ultimate relationship to the decision. And finally, step 4, plan communication with stakeholder. In these first 3 steps, we identify the stakeholder, we determine their critical issues, and finally, how to reach them or communicate. But in this last step, we will use this information that we have previously gained to plan a communication for each one of them. It's more personalized, and this will allow us to, based on the critical issues identified in the first 2 steps, establish prioritization and then communicate our plan. But for each one of them, what they want, need, if they have concerns, so we can deliver this message and achieve the results that each one of them wants. An easy way to plan stakeholder communication is just using a series of charts similar to the ones we use in practice and application exercise below. Thank you.